Welcome back to the new episode of the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive. Good evening, Alison.
Good evening, Ben. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Alison. Why we say that might become apparent later on, if it strikes you as a bit weird, but if you've watched this week's episode, you'll understand.
Yay!
Now, SADDO, Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive, is a watch-along, listen-along podcast. You can watch the latest episode of The Good Life on BritBox or on Dailymotion. And if you're not sure where to find it, look us up on Twitter or Facebook. And then you can listen to us talk about it afterwards. That's the general crux of what we do.
And hopefully you know what you're doing by now, because we're already 5 episodes into Series 3.
Yeah, if you haven't grasped the concept and you've listened to 20-odd episodes, seek help, because you may be developmentally challenged.
I think we think you know what you're doing now.
We'd like to hope so. So, yes, this week's episode is the classic episode, The Windbreak War.
I think, is everyone waiting for this one, do you think?
I have been.
I bet you have.
Yeah, I love this one. Although, as I said shortly before we started recording, it's like 20 minutes of setup for 10 minutes payoff, isn't it?
Yeah.
10 minutes brilliant payoff at the end,
really. There is a big
really.
payoff, yeah.
But before we get started, we usually play a game or discuss something. Have you got something this week, Al?
I've got a blankety blank.
Oh, great excuse to bust out the theme tune.
Good life blankety blank, blankety blank. Good life blankety blank, blankety blank. Good life blankety blank, blankety blank, blankety blank. Blankety blank. Blankety blank.
So I've got 3 what blankety blanks? I've got 3 blanks. 3 blanketies, I don't know.
What did we decide that they called it in America?
I can't remember what we said.
Fill in the blank, fill in the blank. I don't know. They have to make it obvious for their, dumbed down hillbilly audience, don't they? Sorry, Americans.
What word is missing? What word is missing? So I've got 3 this week.
Yep.
Did we have 5 last week? And you did quite well last week, didn't you? You got out of a possible 15. I think you got about half, which was good because they were quite tough. I don't think these are any easier, but let's see how you go on. Right.
Okie dokie.
Here's the first one. Okay, and do you want to know who's speaking, or do you want to have a guess at who's speaking?
Well, there's 2 points on offer, isn't there? If I get who's saying it and I get the blanks as well.
Right, I'll give it to you blind then. We don't
That
want...
sounds like Jim Bowen thing. I'll give it to you blind. What, are you ready, son? Are you ready?
I'm wearing Farrah's. I'm not really. Right. Okay. We don't want the blanks from blank pinching our design.
So that's got to be a JJM thing, hasn't it? Isn't it? No? We don't want the blanks from blank pinching our design. I was thinking episode 1 when they were still working at JJM.
With the plastic hippo.
Yeah, but it's not that, is it? I can tell by your face.
Plastic hippo. Nope.
The blanks from blank. It's not going to be bastards, is it?
It's not. On this occasion, no.
Design. What do they design in The Good Life? I'm trying to think of past episodes, what we've covered. It sounds like a Tom thing to say.
1 point.
Well, I think that's probably the only point I'll get on this one. Unless you want to give me a little clue.
It's in a very recent episode that we've done.
Is it about his car then?
It's to do with our vehicle.
Is it to do with his rotary cultivator?
It's to do with the rotary cultivator.
We don't want the...
Blanks from blank pinching our design.
Right. The boffins from Porsche. I don't know.
Oh, do you know what? You're not far off. You're on the right lines.
Okay.
I can't give you a point because they're both wrong.
Yeah, fair enough. That seems like a fair conclusion.
It's the spies from Ferrari.
Oh, so
you
close, wasn't I?
Off. Yeah, but you got 1 point for Tom.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Here's the next one. You've got away with goats. I've got away with blank blanks.
Now, so this could be one of the goods talking to the other good, or it could be Jerry. I think it's Jerry saying, you've got away with goats and I've got away with, like, negotiating or salespeople.
It's away as in 2 words, at way, not as in getting away with something. You got a like a knack.
Is it not from his episode where he was negotiating with the journalist and they were nearly in the Observer?
No.
No. All right. I'm going to sort of, again, change my answer on the fly and not say Jerry based on your face.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with Tom again.
Tom, 1 point.
And he said it to Barbara, you've got away with goats and I've got away with being a prick. No, I don't know.
On this occasion,
sorry.
That's wrong. The answer is teapots.
Teapots. Still none the wise. I don't remember that quote.
It was the day.
What did he mean?
The day peace broke out, and it was to do with, I think, was he mending a teapot?
Right.
Or is it when they were doing the pottery and he?
Well, I did wonder if it was a pottery thing. When I said Tom, I thought, well, but then I couldn't think what it might have been. But never mind, I got the right person again by semi-cheating and reading your face. You've not got the greatest poker face I've ever seen.
I've not got a good poker face, no. Absolutely
Jim
not.
Bowen and Les Dawson wouldn't have done that.
Jim Bowen face.
There's a backhanded compliment.
Okay, do you want number 3?
Yes, please.
Okay. Don't try to butter me up with blank blanks.
Don't try to butter me up with... I feel like I should know this one.
Don't try to butter me up with blank blanks.
I'm going to go with Hello Margos.
Oh. You've got a point for Margo.
What, she said it?
She said it.
Oh, no, I was thinking someone said it to Margo, so I don't really think I get... Yeah.
No, it was Margo that said it. Don't try to butter me up with fresh eggs. It was just after that horrible the zoom on the scarecrow wearing her dress. And she's having a go at Tom over the fence, and he tries to give her a fresh egg to keep her sweet.
Not one of those gigantic eggs.
Not one of the gigantic eggs, no.
No. Anyway, after last week, we should stay away from eggs, I think.
Yeah, no more. Yeah, no eggs. So you've you got 3, and I've given you the last one because you said Margo, even though you
that's very kind of you. Yes. I don't think I was very good, but
so 3 out of 9.
Appreciate your charity.
It's all right.
I'm not doing wonderful at it, am I?
It's quite hard.
It is hard, yeah. I would set you one, but I think I've already embarrassed you enough with my quiz questions. I think you should stay.
Just fail.
Are you going to stay as the blankety blank? Do you prefer to be Les Dawson or Terry Wogan?
If I had to choose, I think Les Dawson.
Yeah, I do as well. I tweeted out a picture of him recently looking like a young Neville Southall.
Oh! Did he ever have, like, hair? Was it always a big comb over?
Yeah, he did. He had quite lush hair in this picture. It was a picture of him playing the piano in Paris as a young man.
Oh.
And he looked just like a young Neville Southall.
Okay.
Sort of heavy set, but like little tash. And
yeah.
You wouldn't have picked it as Les Dennis if you'd just seen it blind.
Not Les Dennis. Do you mean Les...
No, sorry. Les Dawson. Yeah. You wouldn't have picked it as Les Dennis because it wasn't Les Dennis. He was sat in a Paris bar at the piano singing, I don't really know. It's easy to get your leses mixed up, isn't it? Oh, Christ, I'm going down another rabbit hole now.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh.
Well, shall we get stuck into this episode, The Windbreak War?
Yes.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
We open in this episode with the goods working away in their garden, which, if we're to believe previous episodes, is about an 18-hour day for them anyway, isn't it? So no wonder.
Yeah.
And Barbara's looking particularly lovely, I thought, at the beginning of this episode. I don't know if you caught just a eye makeup maybe or something. She just looked sort of radiant.
Aww.
So I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. No, I wasn't. I was just admiring her in a wholesome way. And the good spot, a statue being sort of carried about and a lot of kerfuffle over the fence, don't they?
Yes, so they have a real good gawp, don't they, at what's going on?
Yes, the total nosy Parker's looking over the fence. And there's a statue which Tom likens to Accabilk.
I had to look up who Accabilk was.
So did I. We're too young for Accabilk references, aren't we?
It went straight over my head. But he's a British clarinetist.
Yes, and I didn't even know clarinetist was a word. It sounds like a made-up word. Like clarinet player should be the word or something.
Yes, yeah.
However, so we can't comment on the statue's likeness to Accabilk because we don't know Accabilk.
No idea.
If you know Accabilk and you think it looks like Accabilk, tweet us saying that statue looked like Accabilk. But they're being proper nosy Parkers and they're sort of asking the handyman next door with the flat cap on, Mr. Bailey, what he's doing. Is that a sigh because you don't like Mr. Bailey?
Mr. Bailey just annoyed me, but in a way that the people that sort of assume that when you talk about other people or about places and things that you immediately know what they're talking about.
Because he started talking about Obbs, his gaffer. Yeah,
and it's like,
he had a chip, didn't he? He had a chip on his shoulder and he wanted to vent.
He did.
So, yeah, he gets on his soapbox, starts moaning about his boss, Obbs. He's got this sort of very old-school London accent, I thought.
Yeah.
He was almost already out of its time in 1977, I thought.
Yeah.
And the little tash on him, it was almost like Terry Thomas, who we've discussed before.
Got a lot of Terry Thomas, haven't we? We've got a lot out of him.
Anyway, eventually, this fella, Mr. Bailey, confesses that he is measuring for a windbreak.
Which, the goods are the cross about it straight away, aren't they? About this windbreak.
Yeah. Because they realise, don't they, that it's going to impact on their fruit growth. It'll block the sunshine.
Yes.
But Tom has a plan. He says he's going to turn on the old charm with Margo.
Yeah.
And I feared for him at that point. But we cut to Margo sat in the goods lounge. She's clearly been invited round. And she's clearly immediately sort of on edge thinking, what does Tom want? Because he's doing that weird, creepy leering.
Yeah, he's obviously after something, or to get to do something. And she's quite wise to him now, I think. She's quite wise to when he turns on the charms.
But she covers up her knee. She pulls her skirt down and covers up her knee as if, like, he's leering at me. There's always that little sort of undertone of, why is he staring at me like that?
Yeah. He goes about it in a really odd way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Can't imagine neighbours doing that. It's, yeah.
I mean, really, she should have been covering her neck because, as we discover later,
I know.
Tom believes that she's got a sexy neck.
Nothing to do with the legs.
So she demands to know what they want, and Barbara fesses up about the windbreak and how it's going to impact their growth, and explains the situation. And despite some initial indignation, Barbara explains the situation fully, and Tom chirps in with a, "Hey, Margo, hey," which I thought was quite weird. And, you know, because she's a reasonable person, when things are explained to her, she quite quickly said, "Oh, okay then."
She is, isn't she? She's very understanding and happy to accommodate. She's very accommodating, like you say, when she knows what's what, and isn't having sort of the wool pulled over her eyes. She's very open to doing the right thing by people.
And I think she just wanted to move on so she could show off about her arbour that she's building. The arbour,
yes. The temple dedicated to music for rehearsal in the garden.
For the Music Society, which she is newly president of. And the goods predictably just take the piss.
I know. I felt really sorry for Margo, because she's so excited and wanted to tell them all about it, and they were just really...
Even allowing for the fact that, I mean, the theme of this episode is that Margo doesn't have much of a sense of humour, but even allowing for that, with people who do have a sense of humour, sometimes you just get fed up of people constantly taking the piss out of things that are important to you.
Yes.
If you know, just back off for a bit, Tom and Barbara, particularly Tom. And in the end, she just storms out, doesn't she? She sort of foreshadowing what the episode's really about. Margo doesn't see the funny side, and she storms out and she screams, "Shut up!" at Tom, who he's not even bothered that he's upset his friend. He's just cackling.
Yeah. Poor Margo.
I've said it before. I've said it again. Prick.
This is a prime example of that kind of behaviour, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. No more needs to be said about Tom. I've covered it all already.
That's it. That one word.
I received a little backlash on
social media. It does get worse, though.
For it.
Tom does get worse in this episode, though. So.
Oh yeah. Don't worry, I'm not done with him.
I know.
I'm far from done with the fucker.
I'm just waiting. It does get worse.
But back next door, we see Mr. Bailey. He's trying to put the windbreak up, and he's bullying his YTS boy at this point, isn't he?
He is. Calls him a skiver. When he calls him unskilled labour, who shouldn't be doing part of the job anyway, and then when he doesn't join in to help out, he calls him a skiver. Yeah,
well, he says that the YTS boy isn't old enough for erections.
I know. Nobody laughed. I laughed. No one laughed at that in the audience.
I had a little chuckle at it. But I think at this point, as an audience, where we expect that the windbreak is going up in the right place at Margo's behest, that she would have told Mr. Bailey to put it up elsewhere.
Of course.
But then, of course, we see Tom opening his curtains, and he sees it fully erect, where Margo agreed not to erect it. How many times am I going to say erect it? You know, this podcast is sponsored by Pele. And what does Tom say when he sees it?
The petty-minded bitch.
Yeah.
And it does one of them horrible swooping zooms.
I knew you'd say that. Yeah. And the brass tone.
Yeah, swooping zooms, the scary music, and Tom calls her a petty-minded bitch, and Barbara says that she's spiteful.
The petty-minded bitch.
Did you get a bit of PTSD with the brass tone and the swoop?
Oh, I didn't like it, yeah. It's one of my least favourite things about 1970s sitcoms.
It's funny, isn't it, that a lot of people's things that'll trigger them are like horror movie tropes, and yours is a swoop and a brass tone.
Oh, I don't, yeah. But I think it is the 1970s public information films, which use that sort of thing a lot.
Yeah, we discussed that, didn't we, in a past episode? There's some really grim scenes, and they use it, and it just makes you go, especially because it's rooted in our childhoods.
Yeah. So I don't go near sinking sand. I don't go near electricity substations. I don't go near pylons.
You always tell your mum when you're going out.
I do. Don't go near railway lines. Near my house, you've got to cross a railway line on foot, and it just goes against everything that I was taught.
Yeah.
It just feels very weird, so...
You don't sit down in between the sleepers, though, and play with your fire engine, do you?
Not anymore at all.
Good on you. Glad to hear it.
Ooh, I like Richard Bryars. I like Richard Bryars. I like Richard Bryars. I like Richard Bryars.
So the goods, at this point, they storm around and accost poor Jerry, don't they, about this windbreak situation.
Yeah. Oh. It's got me back up this episode. I feel quite cross.
With the goods?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like trigger happy, aren't they? They're like, right. They burst around. Jerry, true to form, he just couldn't care less, could he? He just wants to go to work.
Yeah.
However, whilst they're ranting and raving, he gives as good as he gets. I like Jerry in this episode.
I do. I like when he sticks up for his wife. I like that.
And he also calls out Tom and Barbara, where he says, that's the cornerstone of your whole egocentric philosophy these days. The goods are in their heaven, so all is right with the world.
Exactly. He does call them out.
Yeah. It's a more eloquent way of saying, fuck off, Tom and Barbara. You're being a pair of twats. Which is pretty much how I would have handled it, because I'm not as eloquent as Jerry, I think. He
calls them stormtroopers as well, which did tickle me. And really did sort of lay it on the line that this thing is something that Margot's bought. She wanted it, she's paid for it, and it's her garden. So she can do what she wants. Even if it does block your fruit, she can do what she wants with it.
Yeah. Well, he laid out the 3 fundamentals, didn't he, of the matter, which was, I can't remember exactly what they were, but they were all basically about Margo can do what she wants.
Yeah.
But then the 3 fundamentals ended up as a list of 5, at the end of which he seemed to be on the verge of tears as he left. Poor Jerry. But he leaves, just leaving the goods still in his house.
They do that a lot, don't they, where they just disappear, and you'd show them out, wouldn't you? You'd tell them to get out before going to work.
It's a sitcom trope. Basically, it's sort of like, this is a set, I don't give a shit kind of thing.
Just one point as well, Ben. When Jerry had gone through all his 3 fundamentals, which ended up being 5, the audience clapped afterwards, so we're obviously in agreement. So I think they in the 70s were on our wavelength here. I think they tend to agree.
I don't think they're also possibly just clapping his performance there,
yes,
and the fact that Jerry as a character standing up for himself is nice to see, because a lot of the time he's henpecked.
Yes.
One last thing to point out is that when you say he mentioned the stormtroopers, he would have been citing the Nazi stormtroopers, not the Star Wars stormtroopers.
Not the Star Wars ones. There wouldn't have been a thing, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that puts a whole different sheen on it.
Were you thinking he was saying they were coming round in their white uniforms?
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew.
But yeah, I had, the Star Wars Stormtrooper.
No, it's a bit more political than that, I think. I think he's saying he's like the enforcers in pre-war Germany.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
The goods in the next scene, they've decided to move their fruit. Tom is trying for the moral high ground here due to his insufferable pride, I think, and declares himself having completed the work. He declares that he and Barbara are on a higher spiritual plane than the petty Leadbetters.
Yes.
But he's being petty as well, of course, is the subtext.
Absolutely, of course he is.
And as the goods retire for a nap, almost immediately Margo reappears in the adjacent garden and summons Mr. Bailey into her drawing room. Side note, I don't know what a drawing room is. I know I should. I
think, is the drawing room, would that have been... It's not your front room. So it wouldn't be like your lounge. And it wouldn't have been... I'm just thinking of sort of TV shows where they're like big grand houses. So it's where you would do perhaps like your entertaining. So like a living room, but not like a slouching on the couch watching TV living room. It would have been like a more proper...
It wasn't a drawing room that she invited him into, though, was it? She was just being grandiose.
She was. It was just a front room, wasn't it?
I thought so.
And she puts down some paper for him to stand on when he comes into the house so as not to dirty it.
Yeah. She's done that before, hasn't she, for Tom and Barbara?
Yeah.
Did she
not put a magazine on the settee once when Barbara came round? Yes,
that's right, yeah.
Oh.
And then poor Mr. Bailey, he is totally humiliated by Margo, who's in her pomp here, isn't she?
Oh, big time. Yeah, he does. He gets it here. He gets it in the neck.
And of course, the reason that the windbreak has been erected in the wrong place is that he's missed a note that that Margo has left for him, which had NB written on it, which is Latin for nota bene. Bailey thought it was addressed to somebody else because his initials aren't NB.
His name's Arthur. That did make me laugh. So he ignored it. He ignored it because he thought, that's obviously not for me.
Well, he's from Balham, not from Latin land. So he doesn't speak Latin.
Yes.
So she just humiliates him. In fact, she even calls him a stupid man, which is going a bit far.
Yeah.
She just bullies him into moving the windbreak, and really, she should have made sure he knew.
Yeah. He does call her Lady Faceache, though.
I like that.
Yeah.
Lady Faceache wants a windbreak moved. And then we see the windbreak has been moved in the next scene. And Mr. Bailey's like, are you sure this is the right place? He's like, sort of like giving it the sass to Margo. And then as she walks off, he mouths something at her, but I've no idea what he mouths at her.
I don't know. Oh.
He just sort of mouths obscenity, and the audience laugh, and I'm thinking, what is he actually... Are we supposed to be able to lip read that?
Mm.
He does it again shortly afterwards with Jerry, because as soon as Margo's out of shot, Jerry comes in. Yeah, he gets aggro with poor Mr. Bailey and goes inside to check with Margo, and then Mr. Bailey's like at him as well, but we can't...
Oh, do you think it's just general, like, dastardly and mutley, like mutley kind of...
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Just like that.
Yep, I do a good Muttley, don't I?
You do, I like that.
I heard, actually, funny you should mention Muttley, Dick Dastardly was based on Terry Thomas.
What is this? This man is...
Yep, he's everywhere, isn't he?
Wow, he's everywhere. Was it really?
Yeah. I read it when I was reading about Terry Thomas the other week, because he's Richard Brye's cousin. Richard Brye's second cousin or first cousin.
He's definitely keeps popping up, doesn't he?
And then talking of popping up, Barbara and Tom reappear from their afternoon delight, looking nicely shagged out, and cheerily bid Mr. Bailey good evening before seeing the moved windbreak and then verbally setting about this poor harangued man. He just gets all flustered and starts babbling about his rights, doesn't he?
Oh, I see. I feel bad for him, even though he is quite annoying.
But Barbara says, "Stop moaning at the poor bastard," doesn't she?
Barbara's not at her best in this episode at all.
Apart from aesthetically, which she really is. And Mr. Bailey says, "Run for it, Wally, it's a madhouse."
It's true.
And we're back inside the Leadbetters' house, and we see Jerry waiting for Margo. And there's a brilliant just little line where he says, "What are you doing, darling?" He just has that afterthought. I best add the compliment on the end.
Yes.
As he's waiting for Margo, who's presumably doing her ablutions, the impulsive goods burst in on poor Jerry again when he's mid-gin pour and just go apoplectic again, don't they? What can you say? They're just out of order.
They are. They really are. And do you know what? I think Margo keeps her cool really well in this scene, I think.
Well, so does Jerry. Jerry takes charge and he insists Margo explain it, and he tells the goods to shut up.
Yeah.
And Margo explains it eloquently. The Leadbetters are completely calm, although Jerry is annoyed, rightly so. And then Tom and Barbara realise, we're
to a massive conclusion.
Yeah, but we get the redeemable bit again, though, where they go, "Oh shit." Well, I say redeemable, but then after we get the full round of good evenings, good evening, Tom, good evening, Jerry, then Tom, the cheeky says, fuck, I've swore again. Tom says, "I expect you'd like us to stay to dinner."
After all that? Yeah. After all that, all day? And then...
Do you know what, Tom? No, I don't want you to stay for dinner. I want you to leave now.
Yeah.
Is what I would have said.
Yeah, we've had enough of you. Go home.
Come back tomorrow when we've calmed down.
Yeah.
But they're such even-tempered. Well, no, Margo isn't even-tempered, but in this situation they're even-tempered and understanding of this farcical mix-up, aren't they? And the Leadbetters allow them to stay for dinner, and the goods rush off to fetch some pea-pod burgundy wine for them to enjoy.
Yikes.
I don't think the Leadbetters are keen on it. They sort of tactfully say, "Well, it's not a table wine."
No, it's not. It's not. I think Margo sort of insists that it's just like a one. It's a one drinker, isn't it? She says it's not something that you can drink by the bottle.
Yeah, especially if it looks like it did in last week's episode.
I know, like sludge.
Yeah, I just saw. Side note: I just saw something on Facebook earlier this morning, and it was something where the Viz things come up, letters to Viz.
Yes.
And it was something about, when it comes to wine, why do we call them white and red? Because white wine looks more like sort of yellowy piss. Is it just because it's not good form to say, "Would you like a glass of red or a glass of yellowy piss?" Which is true, it's not white, is it?
It's not.
But wine should never be the colour of Tom's Peapod Burgundy, I don't think.
No, never ever.
Be interested to know if anyone's made Peapod Burgundy, because we did share a recipe on our Twitter feed that somebody in America had kindly supplied. If you've made it and you like it, perhaps you could get in touch.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
And now, I think, really, everything up to this point has just been set up, hasn't it? It's just been exposition.
It has. For the next 10 minutes of pure joy.
Yeah, it's wonderful, because clearly the next scene they are post-dinner and also paralytic.
Yeah.
We're in the kitchen where we see Barbara and Jerry, and immediately it becomes apparent that they're shit-faced, doesn't it?
Yes. Trying to it was when I spotted Jerry loading the freezer with the pots, before it was even mentioned. I thought, what's he doing? And then it was quite clear that they're both just hammered.
Well, it's interesting that you noted it, because even though I've seen this episode multiple times, stupidly, I'm looking at him filling his freezer thinking, bloody hell, he's got a big dishwasher.
I know, it's about 5 stories high, isn't it?
I know, I was thinking, well, this is 45 years ago, and my dishwasher's like half the size of that. How's Jerry? I was getting quite jealous of Jerry's dishwasher.
Are you going to become a draftsman?
I think I need to, yeah, especially on his wages. I think if I had his wages today, there'd probably still be more than my wages. Never mind. And then, of course, we get the flirtation, because Barbara's flicking her hair, isn't she?
Yes. Jerry is obviously affected by the fact that Barbara is flicking her hair, and he says...
Brings out the beast in me.
Which is a great line, the way he says it. Because he delivers it with such a meek delivery, doesn't he? That it's like, there's no beast there, it's just a sort of timid, sexually frustrated man.
Yeah.
Jerry confesses he's always had a yin for Barbara. I don't know what a yin is.
I thought it sounded just quite like a yearn.
Like a yearn, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
But when she says, I'm a married woman, and he says, well, so am I. It's another great line. But then actually, Jerry literally broaches the idea of wife swapping. He actually brings it up. It's
been sort of hinted and in the background, unspoken, but this is quite blatant now, isn't it? He's blatantly mentioned it.
Well, I suppose Margo mentioned that it was on its way from Epsom.
It's obviously been sweeping the southeast, and it's landed in Surbiton.
I think Jerry's been eagerly tracking its progress from Epsom.
Yes,
waiting for it to arrive.
Urging it forward.
He's like a man backing his nag in the race, isn't he? Come on. Wife swapping.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
Yeah, so in the living room, Margo is busy trying to light a cigarette with a long holder, looking very elegant, but really struggling to light the cigarette. And Tom's sort of crouched down at the table, busy writing a note of apology to Margo. And I thought that this scene was quite sweet, really, because it's where,
in a way, yeah,
where Margo sort of admits that she thinks that she's quite silly. And she's tired of being the butt of the joke. But then at one point she cries, I'm not a complete woman, Tom. And Tom's like, what? But she feels that she's, with having no sense of humour, she does feel like she misses out on things. Lots of things go over her head. And at school she was called Starchy Sturgis, just because she never understood the jokes. And I sort of had that feeling of Margo being quite vulnerable and...
definitely. And she bared her soul, didn't she, really?
She did, and I personally, I sort of felt a bit like, I'm fed up with people taking advantage of her and sort of just expecting her to not grasp hold of what's going on. And, it was quite poignant.
It is poignant, and this is the genius of the writing for Margo. One scene we've got her being a vicious bully.
Yeah.
A class bully, almost. And the next scene, she's so vulnerable that your heart goes out to her. And she does it brilliantly. I mean, clearly, as well as Barbara and Jerry, Tom and Margo are interplanetary at this state, aren't they? They are.
Yes.
They are gone. Tom declares he's going to go and get a sense of humour for Margo. I don't know how he intends to do that.
Where from?
Yeah, maybe out of the freezer.
Yeah,
because it's big enough. Of course, and then he comes and sort of perches himself at the side of Margo, and he's almost sliding down her like a drain in his drunkenness at this point, isn't he? Admiring her very sexy neck.
Yeah. He's like inches away from her face as well, and it's literally only disturbed by Barbara and Jerry laughing in the kitchen on their way into the living room.
Well, that's when he panics and falls off, isn't it?
It sort of breaks it up a little bit, doesn't it?
Makes you wonder if there would have been an actual kiss there if they hadn't been coming back, the other two.
Yeah. And she says, Tom and I have just been talking. And Jerry replies, yes, that's what me and Barbara have been doing, as they're busy pulling cardigans on.
Yeah. Oh, are they busy pulling cardigans on?
I'm sure there's like dishevelled cardigans, yeah.
Oh, so your theory is they might have had a little bit of a snog?
Yeah, I think so. They just seem a bit dishevelled because Jerry's very sort of done up in his bright red cardigan. And it was like, and Barbara looked noticeably sort of like cardigan. It might just be like sort of like drunken cardigan.
Yeah, could have been.
Falling off, but yeah. Don't
Cardigan
know.
Shenanigans. So at this stage, I think the Goods realise that they are absolutely plastered, inebriated to the state that they need to go home. And they're about to, when Margo points out that the windbreak will have to be moved again because it's in the wrong place for the replanted fruit.
Yes. It will have to be moved.
Of course, Jerry has the bright idea to move it there and then, which is never going to end well, is it?
It's not. Absolutely isn't. It's the kind of thing that is great when you suggest it in a state like that, but it's no, you're right, it's never going to end well.
Because Tom says, come on, Margo, this is a laugh, isn't it? And poor Margo.
Oh, she's crying again because she doesn't understand why.
Why? Why is
it a laugh?
And then, of course, predictably, out in the garden, the three sozzled drunks are moving the windbreak and are staggering all over the place. Before dropping the windbreak on top of Margo's Acker-built statue, or whatever it actually is.
It falls onto it, and they all immediately look very concerned for their lives. Yeah,
they fall silent, don't they, and look shamefaced.
Oh, the worst thing that could have possibly happened has happened, but Margo ends up laughing her head off about it.
Well, yeah, she was watching them in bewilderment until that happened, and then she just creased laughing, and it was a brilliant turnaround.
I was glad that she laughed.
Well, it wouldn't have been much of a finale to a sitcom if she just bollocked them, would it?
If she just got apeshit and stabbed them.
Imagine she'd just gone, well, thank you very much, and stormed in, and then they roll the credits.
The credits, no laughing, no audience, no clapping.
Yeah, and Jerry, Tom and Barbara just go back to the Goods for a menage a trois.
Oh my God. Swooping cameras and brass. Oh no.
So that was the end of the episode. There's some interesting things to pick apart that we haven't mentioned. One of which I think is the drunk acting styles of these four actors.
Yes. What did you think?
Drunk acting styles differ, and it's something that I've heard discussed on talk shows by actors, and they say how difficult it is to do legitimate drunk acting.
Yes.
People, when they are drunk, act differently, of course. And there's levels of drunkenness. And depicting drunk... I mean, they'll all be drunk to different levels as well, because they'll all have different bloody constitutions, won't they, and metabolisms.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was that Tom and Barbara's drunkenness was a lot more hammy.
Yeah, and Barbara, I thought, was very hammy.
Yeah, they were all over the place drunk. And if anything, you'd expect them to be able to handle the peapod better than the neighbours.
Yeah.
Although the other two who were drunk, but not as badly drunk, it didn't seem to me, Jerry and Margo. Perhaps they're more seasoned drinkers with their gin intake being so high. They're
just topping up, I'm sure.
Yeah. There was no slurring of words from either Eddington or Penelope Keith, was there? They were just...
No, Margo especially, I felt, was, I don't know, it made her quite sort of like melancholy. But it was like, a realistic reaction. And a realistic performance, I thought.
Yeah, because she became that introspective drunk that starts putting some real consideration into herself and voicing it, which she wouldn't ordinarily be so open or vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I thought I could really get on with Margo when she's vulcanized, because she's
yes,
she's quite. You can have a real conversation and get to know the real Margo.
I thought that it was the most honest that you've ever seen Margo, I think, in all 3 series that we've watched so far. It was the most open version of Margo, I thought.
Yeah.
And Jerry, because obviously he just divulges all sorts.
Yes, that's true. The other interesting thing was the degree to which they were actually interested in each other sexually. because there was definitely... Jerry was mad for it with Barbara, wasn't he?
Blatant, yeah.
Tom, it seemed more opportunistic or just organic. He wasn't leching after Margo. He just happened to be sympathising with her, and then they became quite close. And it was just the drink talking, if you like, when he was sort of talking about her neck and luring in. Margo seemed briefly sort of taken with Tom when she said, "Oh, you can be very masterful."
Yeah.
So a little bit there, but I didn't really think that Barbara had any interest whatsoever in the kitchen. It didn't come across as something she was up for.
I think she just took it for what it was, like just drunken chit-chat.
Yeah, she was just being Barbara, being silly. Dishwasher, dishwasher, dishy.
And she did try to, when she sort of noticed that he was putting his pots in the freezer, she was quite happy to divert the conversation to that rather than, "Oh, tell me more, Jerry.
Tell me more. The only other thing I wanted to say was about Mr. Bailey, because he played quite a heavy part in this role. He seemed to me like a sort of working class Peter Bowles from To the Manor Born.
Oh, right, okay.
He struck me as that. But the most interesting thing about this chap I could find was that he voiced Creature in Harry Potter. It was his last acting role in 2009 before he died.
Oh.
So in addition to being Creature, he was also did lots of the voices in the mid-80s movie Labyrinth.
Oh, right, okay.
With David Bowie. He did The Worm on the Wall.
Right.
The Four Guards. And also one of the Goblins, I think. So I think he did a fair bit of animated work. And he was, he did the scene. He was in Minder and Ever Decreasing Circles. And I think he was on the circuit. He was on the circuit, yeah. He did a load of those type of things. And I thought he was quite good. He was
very good at the part. I found him irritating, but that usually means that he's done a good job.
He's supposed to, I think.
Yeah.
But he wasn't my MVP. My MVP was nearly Jerry for taking charge.
Okay.
But ultimately, it couldn't have been anyone but Margo for being vulnerable in front of Tom about her lack of sense of humour and all the sort of pathos, and it was quite heartbreaking, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You know that I like to pick a character that pushes the story on a little bit, and for me, this week, it was definitely Margo that did that. For the same reasons that you've just said, just seeing her open up and just finding a bit more out about the character as well. She was just really honest and, like I said, vulnerable, which is not something that you see very often when it comes to Margo. But it was nice to see.
Shall we have a little trip over to Fashion Corner and have a look at the fashions on display in this episode?
Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner.
Okie dokie. So this week, I wanted to mention first of all before I slide straight in with 2 feet into Margo fashion. I wanted to mention Jerry in the kitchen when he's drunk with Barbara. I mentioned before his red cardigan, and he had a red cardi over a shirt and tie combo, which made me think of, have you seen that film from Tom Hanks called Mr. Rogers?
No, but I know of it.
You know what I mean? He had a real Mr. Rogers look about him. Very sort of done up, bit granddaddy looking. Which it didn't sort of sit right with the image of Jerry being man about town, leather jacket, Burberry slacks. It felt like a bit more of a grown-up look, which you don't often see, I don't think, with Jerry. But worth a mention because it was like the most orangey of red cardigans.
Yeah, it was a bit loud.
It was very loud, a very loud cardigan. So yeah, I wanted to mention that. Margo, as always, very elegant looking. There's a scene early on where she's in like a green chiffon dress, looking very beautiful. It had like a crossover front and she had these big golden beads sort of alongside. And then we see her a little bit later on, and she I think it's when she's with Mr. Bailey in the front room and she's discussing leaving the letter on the pickaxe. And she looks like she's been to a wedding. Don't know where she's been, but she's in like a duck egg blue dress and jacket with like a jade belt. It's with gloves, white silk gloves, and then this hat with a veil, which is so sort of dressed up. I'd really like to know where she's been actually, because if it's something like shopping, she was just far too overdressed.
She's quite booby in this episode, I thought.
She is. There's lots of boob on display. It's a certain cut of the dresses that I think make them, make it so obvious.
Jerry had a new suit that we hadn't seen before, didn't he?
Jerry did have a suit, and it was like a thick pinstripe tartan-looking suit. Not one that we have, that we've seen before, which is nice. And then Margo had the dress on later on. It's like a sage green with slashed sleeves and a pink flower. She wears a lot of green and pinks and purples together, but she just rocks whatever she wears. This looked more like sort of like lounging about the house kind of wear that Margo has on quite regularly. But yeah, it was a nice episode for fashion this week. So, what episode are we on next week then?
It's the penultimate episode of Series 3, Episode 6.
Nice.
And it's called Whose Fleas Are These?
Ooh, okay.
Self-explanatory. They get fleas and they're blaming each other. It's a little bit farcical.
Of course they are.
Like this one. Who's brought the fleas? Margo gets the knickers in a twist. So we'll look forward to that one.
Bravo, Jerry.
So if you're listening along with us and enjoying what we're doing, you can always check us out on Twitter and Instagram at SADDO Podcast. On Facebook, you can find us by searching for SADDO Podcast, and we have a website at www.saddo.club where you can get more information or listen to the episodes. Get in touch with us and email us at saddopodcast@gmail.com. And please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from.
And on the saddo.club website, you can also subscribe to the newsletter or check out some of the blogs that Al and I have written about the show. And we'll continue to do so because it's not enough to be talking about this show once or twice a week. We're also writing about this show and what we loved about it. So have a look at that.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear from anybody that wants to get in touch.
So we'll see you next week for episode 6, The Fleas. Find out whose fleas indeed these fleas are. So thank you for joining us and we'll see you then.
We will. See you later.
I'll see you.